we have the lovely Cate Barclay. My co-presenter is going to present on the national guidelines, but in particular around the iStart tool, which is the easy read version of the iStart tool. And it's really important to actually talk about this because it's really accessible for everybody to be able to understand, and it's a tool that we've used with the national guidelines to really summarise essentially what the guidelines is for workers to create social and sexual safety for and with people with disability. So I will hand over to you, Kate.
Thanks so much, Mel. Jess, if you can hop to the next slide for me, please. Thank you, lovely. So as you heard Mel talk about earlier today, right at the beginning of the day, we did a lot of extensive consultation when we were looking at writing the guidelines, a lot of interviews, a lot of surveys, a lot of talking with people to make sure that we were really listening to the disability community about what safety is, how can we be safer, and how can we improve safety. One of the things that came from this was looking at a tool that could help explain these key concepts of social and sexual safety, because it's quite a big set of topics, right? And so how do you condense them down? How do you summarize them so that everybody can sort of understand them and work their way through them? And this is where we came up with the iStart tool. So the tool is centered, and hopefully you'll be able to see it on the screen, and thank you so much for that, Jess, is centered around this concept of you and me, which in the iStart tool means the person with the disability and the person working with them. So this could be somebody working with them in a support worker role. It could be somebody who's doing a paid job for them, like a taxi driver or a doctor. It could also be more informal work, somebody doing care as a family member or volunteer work. It's really the people working together. That is this center idea. And so the idea of a strong working relationship between those two people or more people is central to the idea of the rest of the tool. So all the actions that we take to meet the needs of each of the 6 key parts of the iStart tool, which I'm going to discuss in a minute, should always relate back to improving the working relationship between the person with the disability and the worker. From there, we then have the 6 parts, and that's where the word iStart comes from. It's an acronym. And so you take the first letters of each part and spell out iStart. It's really just a way for you to remember it. You can do these actions and look at these areas in any order you want, but sometimes having something that's catchy and that's easy to remember is very helpful. And so we've decided to do it in the iStart model. The 6 key parts, which you'll see around this central element, include space, talk, access, respond, and time. So as you can see on the screen, we actually have a poster version of the iStart tool with miniature definitions of each part as a handy little overview of this tool. So this is in the national guidelines, like the bigger document that Mel spoke about, and it's also in the easy read iStart book that we've then used to break down into more detail. So you'll see that include, for example, says I'm included. I can say yes, no, or I do not know. You will include me in all decisions about me. That is the very basic top level, most shortened version of what we mean by when we say include. Now, as you might imagine, accessibility is a huge component of this tool and has, been a real focus of a lot of the guidelines, and particularly the easy read version of the guidelines. And the co-design work with our project advisory group, many of whom are the speakers for today, they have given me and the team invaluable feedback. And I want to really highlight that the accessibility of this document could not be what it currently is and would not be as valuable as it is without the project advisory group's input, their insights, their testing of accessibility measures, their feedback about what works and what doesn't work, and looking at definitions, just even things like the visual layout of the tool. it is substantial, all of the work that they've put into it. And I really want to appreciate that because we really, really do appreciate them. And they are so important to this work. So thank you very much, PAG. With so many different access needs within the disability community, we know that one thing doesn't suit everybody. So it really made us stop and think about how we can make the iStart tool as useful and as usable to as many people as possible. And so one of the ways we've actually done this, and this was a discussion we have with the PAG, and it was really great, was to make two posters. So I have currently on the screen the circle version, but there is also what we call the stacked version, which is on the website and also in those bigger, broader national guidelines document, which it looks more like a traditional step-by-step. So they're just built sort of on top of each other with a rectangle across the page going from the left to right, and then the rectangle stacked from top to bottom, all connected to the me and you half circle on a left-hand side of the page. So the reason we did this and making this choice was really helpful because it allowed for multiple people to view the information in a way that works for their brain and in a way that made connections for them. And so as a project advisory group, we didn't decide that one of them made sense to everybody. Everybody could then read their sort of preferred version of this document in a way that their brain found easiest. And we just went, you know what, if we need two, we need two. If that's more accessible, let's have two. So when you go on our website, there's actually two different options that you can choose from. And I really recommend thinking about, if you're going to use this with people, what would be the best version, or even asking the people you use it with, which one works best for you, because it's so important to just check in to see what works best. As well as doing the two different versions, all of the information is written with high color contrast and everything has alternative text provided for each image. So this makes it accessible not only to people with lower vision who might need it to be bigger but need that higher contrast, but it also makes it accessible to screen readers. And the language that we use is easy read level language. And then we have the corresponding picture for each key part. So as you can see, when I read out include, to the left of include is an image. And that image is the one that we use to sort of give a bit of a clue about what we're talking about, but we'll also use it as the broader category image for anything to do with include as well. We really thought about the spacing that was on this poster and in the iStart tool. And look, we would strongly recommend, if you are using it, that it's always printed in an A3 size, because this allows for the fact that you can't zoom in on printed documents. You know, you can't do the handy zoom in as you can on a screen. And the A3 print setting, it means that the font, the white space, and the text spacing meets the accessibility needs and sort of general guidelines much better. The last major component of making the iStart tool accessible, which I sort of alluded to earlier, was to create an easy read version of the tool and the national guidelines document. So to make an easy read book that really went through everything. Because the national guidelines document that Mel talked about is quite a comprehensive book. It's quite a detailed look at how to improve social and sexual safety. And that meant that we had to think very carefully about what we wanted to put in the easy read version and how we wanted to frame that. So we came to the decision that the best way to structure the easy read guidelines would be around the iStart tool, as that's the main tool used in the national guidelines, and then use that tool as the through line to get through all the information that we needed to. Can you swap to the next slide, please, Jess? Thank you. So the project advisory group, once again, were incredibly helpful in the process of making this book. We did at least 2 consultation rounds with them, and I had lots of feedback and lots of conversation with people too about it. As the easy read writer of our team, like, it was wonderful to have all of those conversations with everyone. Now, I've popped up some example pages on the screen from the Easy Read book. And as you can see, I've followed a more traditional Easy Read style. So I've got the Safe for Me, Safe for You brand colors as a little border just for some styling. And generally, when I try to write an Easy Read document, I'll be trying to use this nice light blue color so that you can easily look at our documents list and go light blue, Easy Read. Okay, that's the document I want for me, as well as having it very clear on the front page that it's an Easy Read document. We're trying to simplify the process as much as possible. So I've popped that nice light blue color because it helps contrast the white where all the text and information is, but it should also then be a key for anybody looking at documents that if they're looking for Easy Read, they can just look for the light blue documents from us, which is really fantastic. Something really important about this book is that it actually can be used as an empowerment tool for people with disability to help assert their rights. So like Rachel Leaker and Rachel Wotton were saying, sexual rights and sexual safety are really important human rights. We have the right to it in the same way that everybody else does, but we don't always know how to express that or how to check that our rights are being upheld because so often things like sexual education, relationship education, all of those things aren't as accessible. So my hope with this book is that we can use it as a tool as a community ourselves to also help advocate and empower us to look at, are we having our rights met? So not only do we have the concept of each key part explained, which the page on the left, for example, is the include one. So it's got the picture graphs on the left and it's got the writing on the right. And it is explaining what that the I in the I start means include. This means that I'm included in all ways, like you will include me in all decisions about my care and services. I have choices and I can say yes, no, or I do not know. Then it's got a corresponding picture. But we also have added a checklist in each chapter. So in each key part has a little bit of a checklist too. Now, these checklists can help the person with disability consider which of their needs and which of their rights are being met within each of the 6 key parts of that iStart tool. So it's a really useful way to sort of touch base and begin conversations or even thinking about, oh, is this aspect of inclusion being met for me? Can I do that? Has somebody thought about me in that way? So, for example, with the include, the 3 that are on the screen that you can see on the right-hand page are, do I have a say in all decisions that affect me? Do my workers let me be myself and do they understand my needs? And lastly, can I make my own choices? So where someone cannot say that a need is being met or the right is being respected, hopefully these questions can then prompt them to look into why that isn't being met and what can we do about it. It might help them take this book and explain it to a worker or to a loved one to say, hey, can we talk about this more? Can we look into this more? Because I don't think I'm getting this need met and I want it met. It's my right to get this met. I want to make a change in this key area or many of these key areas. It can be a really useful reference for people because it also provides language and visuals. And so if you don't have that language or you have never been given some visuals or a way of discussing this, it can be a really helpful way to express what is missing in your care and why it is important that it's addressed. So the Easy Read iStart Toolbook, alongside those 2 different layers of the posters, are really important. And I'm very glad that I've been able to write them and have so much robust feedback about making them as accessible as possible, because I truly believe that it can help people learn more about what safety they have, where safety and important rights are lacking, and then provide that concrete tool to help them advocate for change. And so, yeah, we're very excited that this is now up alongside our national guidelines. So hopefully everybody will have access to this sort of information. And I'd love to check, does anybody have any questions, any thoughts, any feedback? Would be wonderful. Oh, and thank you, Maggie. More details of the iStart tool can be found on our website. Maggie has popped the website address into our chat for us. Thanks, Maggie.
Any questions from anybody? I have a question.
Yeah, sure, Millie.
So how do you see the iStart tool being used, like when you're using a support worker, for example? Like, how does it come to play?
Yeah,
And
really good question. Sorry,
yeah,
did you have more of the
yeah.
question? Sorry, Mel.
No, that was it. Yeah.
I think the way that I see this being used is hopefully, depending on whether it's a brand new social worker or somebody, a social worker, support worker, sorry, or somebody you've been working with for a while, hopefully you can, if it's at the beginning of a working relationship, hopefully you can bring it up when you're discussing, like Cate Feidler said, your day-to-day routines and getting to know each other. It'd be really fantastic to sort of bring it up at this point and say, hey, let's discuss how we can meet these key areas together. This is what I'm expecting of you. I expect that all 6 of these areas will be met, as is my right. If you have confusion about it, let's talk about it. Let's work through this together. And sort of either giving them a copy or going through it together would be really good. If it's somebody that you've had support you for a while, perhaps suddenly springing a whole new document and saying, hey, I want you now to read this, might come across as you don't like what they're doing. And maybe that's true. So maybe that is a good way to do it. I think potentially you could say, hey, I've been reading this document. I want to show you some of this because I want to discuss how we can use it in our work together. And I think then you can sort of go through it and maybe pull out specific things, particularly if there's one key area you think, say, for example, you don't think things in the talk area being met. You don't think your style of communication is being, upheld as important. You might need a communications board and your worker isn't bringing it with them everywhere you guys go because they just assume that you're okay for them to speak for you. Maybe this is a way that you say, hey, actually, I would like you to bring communication boards with us because it forms part of my safety and it shows respect for me. And so maybe you can sort of use it in that sense. Does that answer your question, Mel?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I do have a question and I've got a comment. So I'm just
Mhm.
going to read. So this is an incredible resource. Congratulations on developing it. Let's all talk about it and think about how we can promote it. I've highlighted in a book. I have written about violence prevention. I'd love to talk more about it and how we can use it with people with high and complex support and communication needs. So we got that's Patsy, and I believe that might be Patsy Frawley.
Ollie? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so we've also got a great tool. Can't wait to share it. And then a question being, is this something that you would hope to be available in schools? I think it would be a great tool during sex education.
So thank you for the comments. And Patsy, I'm more than happy to chat about this more. I think we already have each other's emails. So if you want to flick me an email, I would love to talk about this more with you. And thank you for highlighting it in your book. In terms of hoping it would be in schools, I actually think it'd be fantastic. I think it'd be a really great way to open conversations and not just for the students with disability, but to look at those 6 key areas for all of the students and say, hey, this is actually a really good way to consider consent and to consider safety, that all of these 6 areas should always be met. And then you would have the actual full easy read book to go through this in more detail. I would love that. I think I agree. I think it really would be a good tool in sex education. Thank you. I'm not sure about the process of getting it in to schools, but it's definitely something we could, look at as a team and consider and think about, and hopefully as a community sort of start sharing it widely within the community and then get some traction from there. But I think it would be fabulous as a really easy to understand way, a really easy to explain sort of tool, why those 6 parts are important and why we should all be doing them. Thank you.